Rolling sound, quiet. Here we go. Beating. 1.67. And starting with and action.
Well, hello everybody. My name is Bernardo Valerino. I am a local artist here in Fort Worth, and Chad Matthews asked me to talk with Andrés Sanz. Did I say that correct?
Yes.
Okay, muy bien. And we're here with Meet the Filmmakers, and today we're going to be talking about a movie it's a great movie, and it's called The Painting. And The Painting is about a very, very well-known painting. Is Las Meninas de Velázquez, and I've had the pleasure to actually be to El Prado and seeing the artwork myself. As a Colombian, it's funny kind of background in this. My parents had a set of you know uh, the things you can put in glass. Anyways, they had a picture of Las Meninas. So Las Meninas has been part of my history, and it was great watching the movie. I gotta tell you, I really love the intrigue, all the questions you ask in the movie. So let me go ahead and ask you one question right off the bat. And you were in the movie. It starts with kind of your own history about being 6 years old and being at El Prado. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you to El Prado at 6 years old.
The experience I had actually is very common because most of the Spaniards and people from Madrid, we go to the Prado Museum when we're kids very early, and specifically the painting of Las Meninas is a very dear and very well known painting, but also it's an image that we care a lot because it's a family, it's a group of people, and it's like part of our families in a way. So when we go to the Prado, we always go to see that painting since we are very, very little. And in my case, I saw it in those special circumstances. I saw the painting in that mysterious room, because now the painting is in a very large gallery surrounded by many other paintings. But many years ago, it was kept in a private, separate gallery. The picture was hung on a wall by itself, and behind the painting there was a mirror. So there was a very strange setup, and as a kid you couldn't understand why there was a mirror and why the people in the painting were looking at us and we were looking at them, and we were all together in two different rooms, but they seemed to be the same room. It was all very magical and strange, and I kept always wondering about the meaning of the whole setup.
Mm-hmm.
So for many years, I actually studied painting myself and sculpture. I went to study fine arts in Madrid, and then I moved to study filmmaking in San Francisco. And so after many years living in the US, when I came back to Spain, this project, in a way, is a fulfillment, because my love for painting, filmmaking, and the fact that I was back to my country, it made sense to bring the story to film, because it was very difficult to tell. I mean, painting is always a very difficult subject to put in a documentary if you want to do something special, because you can't end up making one of these very informative didactic documentaries about how amazing a masterpiece is, and how amazing Velázquez is. So I wanted to do something different.
Exactly, and it is different. At the very beginning, as I mentioned, there was just a kind of tiny little prologue, and it talks about you having a dream, and as you see the movie, you kind of there's that dream feel to the cinematography of the film, but we never get to really know what the dream was. I was always kind of back in the head. It's like, so what was it that you dreamed? What was this reoccurring dream that you had that made you at this point create a movie?
Well, the dream it's pretty much like you see in the film. It was actually fun to recreate a dream that I had a long time ago, but it's a dream about me entering a room, and there was a person sitting in the back in the darkness, and he said, "Look at the masterpiece." And I turned, and there was this very large piece of furniture, this closet, and I look inside, and I could see a small room, and inside the room, a miniature room, and inside the miniature room, there was these little people alive. And I thought, how could he put living people inside a closet? And those people were looking at Las Meninas. So I didn't know really the meaning of the whole dream for many years. And then, many years after, when I came up with this idea of making the film, it's not that I was remembering the dream. The dream came later. I thought, well, there was a dream about Las Meninas I had, and then so I decided to put it in the film because
Awesome.
in a way it's all fiction. It's like talking about fiction and reality.
Yes, you are actually, and I'll touch on that in a little bit. But before I go into that part, I was also wondering, before you talk to the experts, when we get to know a painting or an artwork better, our perspective changes. So before you talk to all this wonderful group of people, what was your favorite thing about the painting? Just as yourself, kind of your own ideas, bias, all those things, and the painting. What was your favorite thing about the painting?
When I was a kid, I was very much fascinated with Velázquez's portrait. I had a small segment of the painting when just the self-portrait of the painter, because the idea of the creator inside of his own creation, and being inside and outside at the same time, like his outside painting and it's also his inside. It was one of the things that really get me, dreaming. There are many things. I love the guy, Jose Nieto at the end with a door. I love that image. It's amazing. Cool. It could be in any, thriller, any Hitchcock movie.
Correct.
But I love also, one of the things that I didn't like the painting for many years was the portrait of the princess, because I always felt that it was too, no, like, okay, at the end it's about this little beautiful blonde girl in the middle of the painting, not very modern, not very cool, but then as I was making the film, I realized that she is the whole key to enter in the painting, and the whole story about the children dying and how we pass, and how paintings or photography are, the only things that we leave, any trace we leave at the end, when we passed on. I thought that actually that child was very, very, very important.
And for the royalty as well. I mean, that was done for the king. So you wanted to make sure that the representation of his daughter was dead on. So, and that she was the center of the whole thing. But this is great. Now, the Meninas is a painting that I would say everybody has a different approach to it. And the experts were definitely, it was obvious throughout the conversation that there was some consensus, but at the same time, there was a lot of disagreement in some cases. When you approach the experts, how was their first reaction? Because that's something I wonder. Was the reaction like, yes, let's do this movie, or, oh my God, let's, once again, talking about the mysteries of Las Meninas, and he was kind of pulling teeth. So I'm kind of wondering how that conversation went with the group of experts that you decided to go with.
Well, with most of them, they agreed right away, because Las Meninas is a subject they love to talk about. Velázquez painting and Velázquez art as well. I mean, some of them, it was more difficult to convince, like the Antonio Lopez, the painter. Probably he's just tired of talking in many, films and many projects. It was difficult to convince them, but finally he agreed to do it out of love for Velázquez, I think, and it was key for me to have them in the center of the picture, because I need an artist in between, among all these experts, from the academia.
Yeah.
Most of them, well, I had to meet them first. I have to get them to trust me, to know that I knew what I was talking about, to tell them my approach, the angle, of the film. So at the end of the day, when they came for the interviews, we were already in conversation. I used to go to pick them up at their home, and we start the conversation in the car. So when we got to the studio, we just continue. Yeah. It was just, and we could, go for 4 hours and hours. So that was very pleasant and surprising, and that's why I think we got all these very emotional moments, because they really forgot they were in any kind of a academic environment, talking to students. They were just talking to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it felt really raw, and in some cases really raw. So it was really good to see the experts kind of unveiling themselves from academia, like you mentioned. So as you were asking the questions and as you were having these conversations with the experts, what was the one thing that they said that you found extremely interesting that you were not expecting?
Well, there are many cases. I mean, I have about more than 60 hours of interviews with them. Wow. So there are a couple of cases, or 3, that of people that I could not put in the movie, because I had to cut a lot of the themes and the subjects that I wanted to talk about. So I think that one of the things I got surprised, for example, with Calvo Serrayer, one of the teachers and critics and art historians, that he passed away when we were finishing. So the film is dedicated to him. And he started to talk about ghosts, and he started to talk about people passing, and the painting as a discussion between 2 people, or that they're actually saying goodbye to their lives, because this is the last opportunity they have to leave something. That got me off guard, because I wanted to talk about all these things, but people usually don't talk about ghosts and death and those kind of things. They want to be more positive, and instead of talking about darkness. But he said it in a very, very emotional way, very truthful way, and that was very important to me, because in a way I thought that it connected to beyond the fact that it's a painting with a lot of stories. It's also like film, it's something that we need to reflect, but also there is an emotional element that we are attached to. And sometimes we forget, when we see old paintings, that we don't know what they mean. So we only know, oh, it's very well painted, oh, it's very, the image is beautiful, or the colors. But behind, there is history, there's passions, there's drama, all those elements. And I wanted to bring all this together. So there are a lot of things that I had to leave, like, for example, a lot of discussions about how Velázquez painted the Las Meninas, for example, how actually did it, or many, time, space, composition, those are, or even the restoration, which was very polemic and very controversial, because there was it was during the 1980s, and there was a foreigner, a conservator from the Metropolitan Museum, who came to clean up the painting, and there was a big controversy because they wanted someone from Spain. So there are a lot of funny stories, but I could not, finally at the end put them all together. I had to select the most important things.
Correct. And it's funny you're mentioning about the different things that the interviewees were talking about. There's one interviewee that I connected with, and that was Svetlana Aspens. Just because I approach art in a very kind of factual, very kind of pragmatic point of view. And there was at the very beginning, she is very direct, and she says, "This is not a story. This is not a movie. This is a painting." Right? And she's very matter of fact about that. And I absolutely love that. And then she goes on talking about how we don't look, just what you were talking about. Behind the paint, there's a whole bunch of other layers. And it reminds me a little bit also by a quote by Matisse that's also about not able to look, kind of taking things as they are and having a bias of things as they are. Anyways, and she also allures to the fact that there's the more you kind of allow yourself to be in this ignorance, there's more mystery than there is reality, right? She alludes a little bit to that, and you do a really good job of editing that back to back with Manuela and how what she says right after. But anyways, the reason why I mention all this is because there is a push and pull throughout the whole movie about reality, surreality, fiction, myth, and you don't know at the end which one's true. So I'm intrigued to understand kind of your thought process on this kind of reality versus fiction in the approach to the film.
Well, look, when you're making a film, and this is my first documentary, so I actually didn't know. I didn't have any agenda about what documentary is or what I should do or shouldn't do. And since the subject is a painting, it's a historical painting, is about the people who painted it more than 300 years ago, and history is an important subject in the film. So one of the problems I had is, okay, but since we're talking about interpretations and we are talking about how to know the meaning of an artwork, okay, well, an artwork is always going to be a mystery, subjective, I guess, because as soon as you start, you find a new a spectator, you're going to find new meaning. But the problem I found it very funny about art historians is that they, at one point, they believe that they can find the truth about something. Like, okay, there is a fact. Velázquez painted it. Okay, yeah, we know. He could be the only one who painted it, and his self-portrait is in the picture. But many other mysteries that we don't know, and they really try to dig in and find the answer for everything, right? But it's a fiction. It's a painting.
Yep.
So the trick is that Velázquez, made us believe that what we're watching is absolute reality.
Correct, exactly, and that's
so that's the discussion. That's the whole mess. It's like we're talking about reality, we're talking about fiction. So the film, in a way, is a reflection about all these problems. How difficult it is actually to look at the past, because we're all, there's a subjective, element in history. And you're always going to be reflecting yourself, your time, and your preoccupations into the past.
Yeah, and I think one of the most interesting conversations for me was the discussion about the X-rays. I had never seen the X-rays. I had not really known about this kind of other Meninas painting, if I may even say it that way. And kind of like you were talking about, kind of the need for people to find this, I don't know, like a mine of gold or something that hasn't been expected from the Meninas. And it was really interesting to see the experts go back and forth and the way you edit it.
The story of Las Meninas is like, it's a suspense film in itself, because imagine it's like you see this, you start to build this theory, this castle around Velázquez. So everything is around his need to portray himself into the picture, to be with the king, right? And then they make the X-rays, and there is a figure below Velázquez's portrait. So Velázquez wasn't there at the beginning, or there was another version behind. So then the whole theory starts to, it's like what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, this picture gives you enough material to create so some kind of a thriller, because it's very, there's twist, turns,
As an artist
surprises.
myself, I was thinking, well, he could have just started painting a whole other painting with that canvas, and all of a sudden he's changed his mind and started painting the pininas on top of it. That was my first reaction to the whole thing. It's like,
There you go.
it doesn't quite match, and just adds to the mystery of the whole of the context around Las Meninas. And one of the things that I talk with my classes, because I also teach art appreciation and I talk about Las Meninas in my class, one of the things that that I'm always intrigued about, just from a personal perspective, is kind of the side characters that are part of the composition, like the gossiping clergy, or like you mentioned, the guy in the back opening the curtain or closing the curtain, whichever it is. Um, but and the other one is the little child, the kid, the little boy kicking the dog. Were discussions done with the experts about those characters in the painting? Because obviously in the movie they were not. You focus mainly in the movie on obviously Velasquez, Las Meninas, and also kind of the creation of the context of the painting. So what was it said about those other characters that are so prominent in Las Meninas?
Well, yeah, as you say, I have to leave those characters aside because there was no time to talk about them. But these people, the dwarfs, the ladies in waiting, las meninas, las damas de compañía.
Correcto.
These are all part of the court group surrounding the princess, the infanta, which actually she wasn't a princess because she was in the air, but she was infanta. And this group actually belonged to the queen, so to the queen house, right? So this group of people, the court was divided into the people that belong or work for the king and people that work for the queen. So most of the characters in Las Meninas belong to, let's say, call a female world, because they were surrounding the infanta. And it's very interesting because I got all the biographies from them, what we know about them, and what you say, the little kid, he was dwarf actually, and he made a pretty good living. He ended up making money and and reaching up to a pretty good position in the court. So there is also the idea that these people were they were they were all servants. This is an interesting thing. It's like Velázquez, they had pretty much the same position that the dwarves. They were servants. At that point, Velázquez had a higher position because he was the aposentador, but in a way, he was not from noble, from the high ranks, in the lower ranks.
Right.
So this group of people surrounding the infanta, they were belong to pretty much the same, class.
And all of them have very close ties to the king by being next to his ear. All of them are, in some ways or another, kind of part of the very day-to-day interactions that the king had. So
think about it. This is what it really is amazing. Is the fact that we know that this painting was in the king's office. It's like for me, it's amazing the fact that any noble coming into his office could see this group of people, that they were not, goddess or any important, count or baron or any high society character. It was just the people surrounding the infanta.
The castle has ears too.
Yeah.
So it's like all these individuals in the castle are around the king also are, part of their lives. So, anyways, we can go down that road. But I do have another question, and this has to do with the feel of the movie. And Velasquez is part of kind of the end, towards in the Baroque, and the film has really that chiaroscuro feel to it. There's a lot of darks. It also feels like a video mystery as well. And one of the things that was slightly out of kind of mash in some ways, but I'd really want to know why the use of the stop motion and then combine it with vintage footage. What was kind of the idea behind doing that, of kind of that amalgamation of different kind of ways of telling the story?
I wanted to recreate in a way that the world of that room, the world of the the landscape surrounding the world of Velasquez. So I didn't want to shoot any actor wearing old clothes, 17th century wardrobe, or I didn't have the money to build up the sets. But that was no reason. I love stop motion and I love puppets. So it came out naturally to think, okay, maybe I could actually use it. Since Las Meninas seemed to be work of I remember a quote from Manuela Mena that she was saying that Las Meninas look like a dollhouse, no, like a group of dolls inside, a room in a dollhouse, or puppets frozen in time, and then if you don't, then maybe when you turn, they're gonna start to move, something like that. And then I always like that image of a bunch of a group of puppets, porcelain dolls. So I thought maybe instead of using actors, if I could use puppets, since puppets, they you move them, but they don't move like in a painting. They're pretty quiet. They're steady, and then they can move. It's the same feeling that you get when you see a painting. It's like they seem to be quiet, completely fixed, but in a way they're moving. That's the trick of that painting does and the painters create. So I thought maybe the stop motion could be good to actually bring this world of and to show the audience how actually was that room. It wasn't a small room. It was actually a pretty long room. But the perspective of the Velázquez painting made look like it's just something that the door was closer to us than actually it was. It was very far away. It was
the darkness of it.
Room, huge.
Exactly. So, kind of one of my last questions. Actually, my last question for you is: you mentioned Manuela, and I mentioned earlier too that Manuela said that as you acquire knowledge for a painting, it's something I press to my students all the time. The more you acquire the knowledge, the enigmas, the mystery kind of disappears. Right? She mentions that. So, given the fact that this comes from your experience with the painting, after acquiring 60 plus hours, how many hours you had with each one of the experts, has the mystery completely disappeared for you, right? Or if not, after creating the film, how do you see the painting different right now than you did, before you started the movie?
I guess to answer your last question, you get a little exhausted, after many years just dealing with this particular image. It's like every single day in your head, and you see it from every single angle, and at the end you don't solve the mystery. So why bother, right? But that's the beauty of it. It's like if the artist made a successful picture image, is that you can continue the conversation, you can continue questioning, and you can continue looking up and finding more mysteries ever and ever and ever. So I guess the the painting is not solved for me. I'm just a little bit exhausted and tired. And actually I remember, and this happens a lot to scholars, is I remember Svetlana telling me that, oh, her favorite painting is Las Hilanderas. There's another painting, very famous painting by Velázquez, right?
All right.
Because obviously it's like when you talk about Las Meninas all the time, at one point it's like, okay, enough of it. I'm gonna look something else, right?
Correct.
But for me now, it's something that I made a very personal film about a painting that belongs to humanity, to every art lover, and it at the same time it's very personal. I put up all my obsessions and all my likes and dislikes there, and so now it belongs to my own life. Even it's closer than it was before, right? I put even my little girl is in the film
with a mirror.
That little girl is my daughter.
I figured. Excellent. Well, Andres, I absolutely love the film. There's a lot of things I really, really like as an artist, and just the person watching the film. I love the fact that that there were Spanish speakers and there were English speakers. I mean, for me, it was wonderful. The feel of the movie and the context, because it is a painting that, like you said, there's a lot to talk about. And Velázquez is an artist who, in contemporary times, we look into just for the way he approached the paint itself. It's the way painting is very much kind of the loosely knowing when to stop painting is very much part of our contemporary way of approaching painting, as well as composition and things like that really informs the way we do paintings and art nowadays. So Andres, I appreciate you. I appreciate the film quite well as an artist, just as a regular film, moviegoer. Stay safe and hope to see you here forward sometime. Muchísimas gracias por todo.
Gracias, Bernardo.
Con gusto.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.